Everything you think you know about walking after 65 is wrong, and I don't say that lightly. I've spent 23 years as an orthopedic surgeon. I've operated on over 4,000 hips, knees, and spines, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that the way most people over 65 walk is slowly destroying their bodies. Not in some abstract, far-off way. Right now, every single step. Here's a number that should terrify you. Every year, 1 in 4 adults over 65 falls. That's roughly 36 million falls annually in the United States alone. Falls are the leading cause of injury-related death in people over 65. Not cancer complications, not heart attacks during exercise. Falls. And the cruel irony is that most of these people were walking. They were doing the thing every doctor told them to do. Move more, get your steps in, walk every day. But nobody told them how to walk. Nobody told them that. The walking pattern they've carried their entire life has become a ticking time bomb. Let me explain what's happening inside your body. When you were 30, your muscles, tendons, and proprioceptive system, that's the network of nerve sensors that tell your brain. Where your body is in space, all of that worked in concert. You didn't think about walking, you just walked. Your foot struck the ground heel first. Your weight rolled smoothly across the midfoot, and you pushed off through the big toe. Your glutes fired, your core engaged. Your arms swung in opposition to your legs, creating a counter-rotation through your torso. That kept you balanced and efficient. But after 65, and really starting as early as 50, a cascade of deterioration begins. Your proprioceptors lose sensitivity. The nerve endings in your feet, ankles, and knees send weaker and slower signals to your brain. Your brain receives degraded information about where your foot is, how the ground feels, and how your weight is shifting. So your brain does something logical but devastating. It compensates. Your stride shortens. Your feet begin to shuffle. You stop lifting your toes properly during the swing phase of your gait, which is the moment your foot is in the air moving forward. Your arms stop swinging as much. You start looking down at the ground instead of ahead. Your posture rounds forward. Your center of gravity shifts in front of your hips instead of staying directly over them. And all of this happens so gradually that you never notice it. But your joints notice. Your lower back notices. Your hip labrum, your knee cartilage, your ankle tendons, they all notice. Here's the biomechanics of it. When your stride shortens and you begin shuffling, you stop using your posterior chain. That's the group of muscles running up the back of your body, your calves, hamstrings, glutes, and spinal erectors. These are the most powerful muscles in the human body. They're designed to propel you forward. But when you shuffle, you shift the workload to your quadriceps and hip flexors, the muscles on the front of your thighs and the deep muscles connecting your spine to your femur. These muscles are not designed to bear the primary load of locomotion. They fatigue faster. They tighten. And when your hip flexors tighten, they pull your pelvis into an anterior tilt, which increases the curve in your lower back, which compresses the lumbar discs, which leads to the lower back pain that plagues 70% of adults over 65. It's a chain reaction, and it starts with how your foot hits the ground. Let me take you deeper into this, because I want you to understand why this matters at a level most doctors never explain. Inside your knee joint, you have 2 types of cartilage. You have articular cartilage, which is the smooth, glassy coating on the ends of your femur and tibia. And you have the meniscus, which is the rubbery, crescent-shaped cushion that sits between those 2 bones. Both of these structures are avascular after adolescence, meaning they have almost no direct blood supply. They rely on a process called imbibition to get their nutrients. Imbibition works like a sponge. When the cartilage is compressed during weight-bearing, old synovial fluid is squeezed out. When the load is released, fresh, nutrient-rich fluid is absorbed in. Compress, release, that's how cartilage feeds itself. But here's the critical detail. The loading has to be rhythmic and moderate. A smooth, rolling gait pattern with proper shock absorption creates the ideal compression-release cycle. A hard, slamming heel strike with a rigid ankle does not. It creates a spike of pressure followed by nothing. The cartilage gets crushed but doesn't get the gentle oscillation it needs to pull in nutrients. Over months and years, the cartilage starves. It thins, it cracks, it flakes away. And once articular cartilage is gone, it does not grow back. Not meaningfully. Not at 65, not at any age. That is osteoarthritis. And for millions of people, the walking pattern they use every day is the primary engine driving it. Now here's what nobody tells you. The solution is not to walk more. The solution is to walk differently. And I'm going to give you the exact changes to make, step by step. Some of what I'm about to share will sound almost too simple. But I've seen these corrections keep patients off my operating table. I've seen people in their 70s and 80s reverse years of joint damage, regain balance, and eliminate pain that they'd accepted as just part of aging. It isn't. Pain is not an inevitable consequence of age. Pain is a signal that something mechanical is wrong. And walking mechanics can be fixed. The first thing I need you to stop doing immediately is the heel slam. Most people over 65, when they walk, are essentially dropping their foot onto the ground heel first with a rigid ankle. There's no control, no deceleration. The heel hits the pavement and a shockwave travels up through the tibia, into the knee joint, up the femur, into the hip socket. A study published in the Journal of Biomechanics measured the ground reaction force of this type of heel strike at roughly 1.2 times body weight with every step. That means if you weigh 170 pounds, you're sending over 200 pounds of force slamming into your knee joint thousands of times a day. Young cartilage can absorb that. 65-year-old cartilage cannot. And I just explained why. Without the blood supply to repair itself, that cartilage depends entirely on the quality of loading it receives. You are either feeding your cartilage or killing it with every step. There is no neutral, so here's the first correction. I want you to think about your foot landing softly. Not on your toes, that's a different problem. And it overloads the Achilles tendon and the metatarsal heads in ways that cause their own cascade of injuries. I want you to land with a slight bend in your knee, making contact with your heel but immediately rolling through the midfoot. Think of your foot as a rocker. The heel touches, the ankle flexes through dorsiflexion. The weight shifts forward smoothly across the arch, and you push off through the big toe. There should be no slapping sound when your foot hits the ground. If you can hear your footsteps clearly on a hard floor, you're striking too hard. This one change alone can reduce the impact force on your knees by up to 40%. 40%. That's the difference between needing a knee replacement in 5 years and never needing one. Now I know some of you are thinking, I can barely walk as it is, and you want me to think about how my foot lands. Yes, because your brain is adaptable at any age. This is neuroplasticity, the same mechanism that allowed you to learn to type, to drive a car, to pick up any skill you've acquired in your life. That same mechanism can rewire your walking pattern. It takes focused practice for about 3 weeks before it becomes automatic. 3 weeks of conscious effort for potentially decades of pain-free movement. That's a trade worth making every single time. The second thing you need to change is your arm swing. And I promise you, this is more important than almost anyone realizes. I'll get into the specific drill you should do in a moment. But first, let me explain why your arms matter so much when we're talking about your legs. When you walk, your body is designed to rotate. Your thoracic spine, the 12 vertebrae in your mid and upper back, is built for rotation. It's the most mobile segment of your spine in the rotational plane. When your right foot steps forward, your left arm should swing forward, and your torso should rotate slightly to the left. Then the opposite. This counter-rotation does 3 critical things. First, it activates your core musculature, particularly the obliques and the deep stabilizers like the transverse abdominis and the multifidus muscles that protect your spine. These muscles don't fire in isolation. They fire in response to rotational demand. No rotation, no activation. It's that straightforward. Second, the counter-rotation generates elastic energy in your fascial system. the web of connective tissue that wraps every muscle, every organ, every bone in your body. Fascia is not passive wrapping. It's an active, contractile tissue that stores and releases energy like a spring. When your torso rotates, the fascia across your trunk stretches and then recoils, propelling you forward with minimal muscular effort. This is why a healthy walker looks effortless. They're not just using muscles, they're using their fascial spring system. When your arms stop swinging and your torso goes rigid, you lose that spring entirely. Walking becomes purely muscular. It becomes exhausting. And that exhaustion is one of the main reasons people over 65 start walking less, which begins the vicious cycle of deconditioning, muscle loss, further gait deterioration, and eventually falls. Third, and this is the big one, the arm swing creates a dynamic balance system. Your body is constantly adjusting, constantly catching itself in a controlled fall from one foot to the other. That's what walking is. It's controlled falling. The arm swing is a counterweight. Without it, you're walking a tightrope without a balancing pole. What I see in my patients over 65, almost universally, is that the arm swing has died. Their arms hang at their sides, or they're clasped behind their back, or gripping a partner's arm, or clutching a handbag against their body. And their torso has become rigid. It moves as a single block, no rotation. This means the core muscles have essentially shut off during walking. And when your core shuts off, your lower back takes over as the primary stabilizer. Your lumbar spine, those 5 vertebrae at the base of your back, was designed for stability, not mobility. When you force it to compensate for a disengaged core, it fails. It spasms. The facet joints grind. The discs compress asymmetrically. They bulge, they herniate. And then you end up in my office. And I'm showing you an MRI of a disc that's been slowly destroyed, not by one injury, but by 10,000 walks with no arm swing. So here's correction number 2. When you walk, I want your arms swinging, not aggressively, not like a power walker pumping fists in a mall, just naturally. Elbows bent at roughly a 90-degree angle, hands relaxed, not clenched, arms swinging in opposition to your legs. If this feels strange or difficult, that's actually important diagnostic information. It means your thoracic spine has stiffened and your core has decoupled from your gait pattern. That's fixable, and I'll give you the exact exercise for it shortly. The third correction is the one that makes my patients most uncomfortable when I tell them, because it requires them to stop doing something that feels safe. I need you to stop looking at the ground. I understand why you do it. You're scanning for cracks, for uneven pavement, for wet spots, for anything that might trip you. It feels responsible. It feels cautious. It feels like the smart thing to do, but it is one of the most dangerous things you can do for your balance and your spine. Here's why. When you tilt your head down to look at the ground 6 to 8 feet in front of you, you shift your center of mass forward. Your head weighs 10 to 12 pounds. That's roughly the weight of a bowling ball sitting on top of a flexible rod. When that bowling ball shifts forward and down, your entire body has to compensate. Your shoulders round. Your thoracic spine flexes. Your hips shift backward to counterbalance. You've now moved your center of gravity in front of your base of support, which means you are perpetually on the verge of falling forward. Your muscles have to work overtime just to keep you upright. You fatigue faster. Your balance is worse, not better. You've created the very instability you were trying to avoid. And there's a neurological component as well. When your head tilts forward, it changes the input to your vestibular system, the balance organs in your inner ear. The semicircular canals and the otolith organs are calibrated to work optimally when your head is level. Tilt your head, and the signals become ambiguous. Your brain receives conflicting information from your eyes, your inner ear, and your proprioceptors. That confusion is vertigo. That confusion is the moment before a fall. A study from the University of Texas at Austin found that older adults who fixated their gaze downward while walking had a 30% higher incidence of tripping over obstacles, compared to those who kept their gaze forward at horizon level. 30%. The reason is counterintuitive but well established in neuroscience. Your peripheral vision, the outer edges of your visual field, is actually better at detecting movement and obstacles on the ground than your central, focused vision. Peripheral vision is processed by a different neural pathway, one that's faster and more sensitive to spatial changes. When you look ahead, your peripheral vision maps the terrain in front of you automatically. Your brain processes this information subconsciously and adjusts your foot placement without you ever thinking about it. When you look down, you override this system. You force your brain into a narrow, focused, foveal mode that actually processes ground-level spatial information more slowly. So correction number 3, eyes forward, chin level. Look at the horizon or at least 20 feet ahead of you. Trust your peripheral vision. It's been doing this job for millions of years of human evolution. It's better at it than your conscious scanning will ever be. The first few walks will feel uncomfortable. You'll feel exposed. You'll feel like you're going to miss something on the ground. That's your anxiety talking, not your neuroscience. Within a week, you'll notice that you actually feel more stable, not less. Now, the fourth correction is about your feet specifically, and this is something I rarely hear anyone discuss. I'm talking about toe engagement. When most people over 65 walk, their toes are essentially passive. They land, they're along for the ride, and the foot lifts off without the toes ever actively gripping or pushing. But your toes, particularly your big toe, are the final link in the kinetic chain of propulsion. Your big toe is controlled by a muscle called the flexor hallucis longus, which runs from the back of your tibia all the way down behind your ankle and under your foot to the tip of your big toe. When this muscle fires during the push-off phase of walking, it does two things. It propels you forward with a final burst of force, and it activates a neurological reflex arc that travels up through the calf, the knee stabilizers, and into the hip, essentially turning on your entire posterior chain in sequence. When your toes don't engage, that entire chain stays dormant. You're walking without your most powerful propulsion system. It's like driving a car in second gear on the highway. The engine is working too hard for the speed you're going, and everything wears out faster. Here's what happens anatomically when the toes stop working. The intrinsic muscles of the foot, the small muscles between the metatarsal bones and along the sole, begin to atrophy. The transverse arch of the foot collapses. The plantar fascia, that thick band of tissue along the bottom of your foot, takes on more load than it's designed for. That's plantar fasciitis. The foot widens and flattens. The ankle begins to pronate, rolling inward. That pronation travels up the chain, rotating the tibia internally, which changes the tracking of the kneecap, which creates the anterior knee pain that so many people over 65 experience. All of it traceable back to toes that stopped doing their job. The fix is simple but requires daily attention. Every day before you put your shoes on, spend 2 minutes doing what I call toe yoga. Stand barefoot. Lift all 5 toes off the ground while keeping the ball of your foot planted. Hold for 5 seconds. Then try to press just your big toe down while keeping the other 4 toes lifted. Then reverse it, big toe up, other 4 toes down. Most people over 65 cannot do this at all when they first try. That's not failure. That's information. It tells you that the neural pathways controlling your toes have weakened, and you need to rebuild them. Within 3 to 4 weeks of daily practice, most people regain independent toe control, and they report that their walking feels completely different, more powerful, more grounded, more stable, because it is. Now I promised you the specific exercises and drills that will make all of these corrections stick, so let's get into the complete protocol. The first drill I give every single patient is what I call the wall reset. You stand with your back against a wall. Your heels, your buttocks, your shoulder blades, and the back of your head should all touch the wall simultaneously. For many of you, getting the back of your head to touch that wall while keeping your chin level, not tilted up, will be a serious challenge. That gap between your head and the wall is a measurement. It's measuring how far forward your posture has drifted over the years. Every inch of that gap represents roughly 10 extra pounds of perceived weight on your cervical spine. Hold this position for 30 seconds. Breathe. Feel what it's like to have your spine stacked properly. Memorize it. Then step away from the wall and take 10 steps, trying to maintain that exact posture. Then go back to the wall and reset. Do this 5 times every morning. Within 2 weeks, your body will start defaulting to this position because the postural muscles, the deep cervical flexors, the lower trapezius, the erector spinae group, will have been reactivated and strengthened enough to hold you there without conscious effort. The second drill targets your foot mechanics. I call it the quiet walk. Find a hard floor, tile, hardwood, concrete, anything that would normally let you hear your footsteps. Now walk across the room as quietly as possible. The goal is absolute silence. To walk silently, you have to land with a soft, flexed knee, roll through your foot with active ankle control, and manage the entire movement. With your calf muscles, your tibialis anterior, that's the muscle on the front of your shin, and your intrinsic foot muscles. This drill teaches your nervous system to decelerate your foot before it hits the ground. It retrains the shock absorption pattern that years of shuffling have erased. You cannot do this drill wrong. If you can hear your feet, you need to get softer. The feedback is immediate and binary. Sound means impact. Silence means absorption. Do this for 2 minutes twice a day, morning and evening. The third drill addresses the arm swing and thoracic rotation I talked about earlier. Sit in a chair with your feet flat on the floor, hip-width apart. Cross your arms over your chest, each hand on the opposite shoulder. Now rotate your upper body to the right as far as you comfortably can. Hold for 2 seconds, then rotate to the left, slow and controlled. Don't jerk, don't bounce. 2 seconds at each end, do 20 repetitions. You'll likely notice that one side has significantly less range than the other. That asymmetry is a problem worth paying attention to. It means one side of your body is stiffer than the other during walking, which creates an uneven gait, which creates uneven loading on your joints, which creates pain and degeneration on the side that's bearing more of the burden. Do this drill daily and add 5 extra repetitions toward your tighter side until the range of motion evens out. For most people, that takes about 4 to 6 weeks. The fourth drill is single leg balance, and it is non-negotiable. If you do nothing else from this video, do this. Stand next to a counter or a sturdy chair, something you can grab if needed, but don't hold onto it unless you have to. Lift one foot off the ground by bending your knee. Don't lift it high. Just an inch off the floor is fine. Hold for 30 seconds, then switch. If you can't hold for 30 seconds, that's your starting point, and that starting point is valuable. Don't be discouraged by it. Be motivated by it. Work up to it. The ultimate goal is 60 seconds on each leg with your eyes open, and eventually 30 seconds with your eyes closed, which eliminates visual balance input and forces your proprioceptive and vestibular systems to do all the work. Here's why this matters so much. During normal walking, there's a phase called single leg stance where all of your body weight is on one foot while the other swings forward. This phase lasts about 0.4 of a second in a healthy gait. If your single leg balance is poor, your brain knows it. Your brain has been monitoring your balance ability every second of every day since you were born. And when it detects that single leg stance is unstable, it compensates by shortening your stride, so that the single leg phase is as brief as possible. That's the shuffle. The shuffle is not primarily a muscle problem. It's a balance confidence problem. Your brain is protecting you from the thing it fears, that half second on one leg. When you train single leg balance, your brain becomes confident in that phase of gait again, and your stride naturally lengthens, without you even consciously trying. I've measured this in my clinic. Patients who train single-leg balance for 6 weeks show an average stride length increase of 14%. 14% longer strides without being told to take longer strides. The brain simply let go of the restriction because the balance system was restored. The fifth correction, and I saved this. for later in our conversation, because it's the one that ties everything together and transforms the quality of your movement, is about breathing. Most people over 65 have shifted to a shallow, upper chest breathing pattern. They use their scalenes, their sternocleidomastoid, their upper trapezius, the muscles of the neck and shoulders, to breathe instead of their diaphragm. This shift usually happens gradually, driven by prolonged sitting, stress, and the progressive stiffening of the rib cage that occurs with age as the costal cartilage calcifies and the intercostal muscles tighten. It's catastrophic for walking, and almost no one connects it. Your diaphragm is not just a breathing muscle. It's a core stabilizer. It's arguably the most important core stabilizer you have. It forms the roof of your abdominal cavity. When it contracts downward during a proper diaphragmatic breath, it increases intra-abdominal pressure. That pressure pushes outward against your abdominal wall and inward against your spine, creating a pneumatic brace, a column of pressurized air that stabilizes your lumbar spine from the inside. It functions like an internal weight belt. Olympic lifters use this principle consciously. They take a deep belly breath and brace before a heavy lift, but your body is supposed to be doing this automatically, all day with every breath and every step. When you breathe with your chest and shoulders, you get none of this stabilization. Your spine is unprotected during every step. Your core is functionally offline. Here's the drill. Lie on your back with your knees bent and your feet flat. On the floor, place one hand on your chest and one hand on your belly just below your navel. Breathe in slowly through your nose for a count of 4. The hand on your belly should rise toward the ceiling. The hand on your chest should barely move. If it's the other way around, if your chest rises and your belly stays flat, you've been breathing wrong, potentially for decades, and it's been undermining your walking, your balance, your spinal health, and even your cardiovascular efficiency the entire time. Practice this for 5 minutes a day, lying down until it feels natural. Then practice it seated, then standing. Then, and this is the final and most important step, practice it while walking. Breathe into your belly with every step. In through the nose for 3 steps, out through the mouth for 3 steps. This synchronized breathing pattern does something remarkable at a neurological level. It links your respiratory rhythm to your gait rhythm, which activates a deeper level of central pattern generator coordination in your brainstem. These are ancient neural circuits that evolved to synchronize locomotion with respiration. When they're coupled, everything works better. Your core fires in time with your steps. Your balance reflexes sharpen. Your movement becomes rhythmic and efficient instead of choppy and effortful. Researchers at the University of Michigan found that synchronized breathing during walking improved postural stability by 22% in adults over 70. 22%. That is enormous. That's the difference between catching yourself when you stumble on a curb and ending up in the emergency room with a fractured hip and a surgical team opening you up at 2 in the morning. Let me bring this all together now because I want you to leave this video with an exact protocol, not vague advice, not talk to your doctor, an actual plan you can start tomorrow morning. Every morning, start with the wall reset. 5 repetitions of 30 seconds against the wall, followed by 10 steps maintaining that posture. This takes about 5 minutes and recalibrates your alignment for the entire day. Then do 2 minutes of the quiet walk drill on a hard floor. Focus on silent, soft, rolling footsteps. Then do 20 repetitions of the seated thoracic rotation drill, adding 5 extra reps toward your tighter side. Then do your single leg balance, working towards 60 seconds per side. Then do 2 minutes of toe yoga lifts, big toe isolation, small toe isolation. And finally, 5 minutes of diaphragmatic breathing practice, lying down. This entire routine takes less than 18 minutes. You can do it before breakfast. You don't need equipment. You don't need a gym. You don't need a physical therapist watching you, though if you have access to one, that's always a good idea. You just need a wall, a hard floor, a chair, and the willingness to practice. Then when you go for your actual walk, and yes, I do want you walking, I want you walking every single day, just walking correctly, remember the corrections. Soft foot landing with a rolling motion through the heel to midfoot to big toe, no heel slamming. Arms swinging naturally in opposition to your legs, elbows bent, hands relaxed. Eyes forward, chin level, trusting your peripheral vision to map the ground. Toes actively engaging during push-off, feeling that final press through the big toe. And breathing into your belly, synchronized with your steps, 3 counts in, 3 counts out. I want to tell you something I tell every patient before they leave my office. The human body is not fragile. It is one of the most adaptable, resilient, self-repairing structures in existence. It can rebuild bone. It can regenerate nerve pathways. It can restore muscle mass at any age. A landmark study from the University of Birmingham demonstrated that even people in their 90s, could build significant muscle mass and strength with proper training stimulus. Your body wants to heal. Your body wants to move well. It has been trying to move well your entire life, but it needs the right inputs. It needs the right signals. The walking pattern most people carry past 65 is the wrong signal. It's a pattern of fear and compensation. Shortened steps because your brain is afraid of that half second on one leg. A rigid torso because your core has forgotten it has a role in walking. Eyes locked on the ground because the world feels threatening under your feet. Shallow breathing because your diaphragm has been dormant for years, maybe decades. Arms pinned to your sides because somewhere along the way, the swing just faded and nobody noticed. Today, you reverse all of it. You replace fear with mechanics. You replace unconscious habit with conscious intention. You replace the slow slide toward deterioration with a deliberate strategy for restoration. I've had patients come to me with MRIs showing bone-on-bone arthritis, scheduled for total hip replacement, who canceled their surgery after 8 weeks of correcting their gait mechanics and rebuilding their movement patterns. I'm not promising you that outcome. Every body is different. Every history is different. Every level of degeneration is unique. But I am telling you, as someone who has opened thousands of joints and seen the damage firsthand, that the way you walk is not a fixed, unchangeable trait. It is a skill. And skills can be relearned, refined, and mastered at any age. One last thing. This might be the most important thing I say in this entire video. Consistency beats intensity. Every time. I don't need you walking 5 miles a day. I don't need you pushing through pain. I don't need you trying to be the fastest walker in your neighborhood. I need you walking correctly for 20 minutes a day, every single day without exception. That's it. 20 minutes of proper gait mechanics will do more for your joints, your balance, your spine, your confidence, and your longevity than an hour of shuffling ever will. An hour of bad walking is not exercise. It's repetitive strain injury. 20 minutes of correct walking is medicine. It's not about how far you go. It's not about how fast you get there. It's about how you move while you're moving. You have everything you need now. The wall reset, the quiet walk, the seated rotation, the single leg balance, the toe yoga, the diaphragmatic breathing, 6 corrections, 18 minutes of morning preparation, 20 minutes of intentional walking. That's the prescription. It's simple, it's free, and it works. Don't just watch this and scroll to the next video. Stand up right now. Walk over to a wall in your home, put your back against it. Feel your heels touch. Feel your shoulders touch. Try to get the back of your head to touch. And just stand there for 30 seconds. Breathe. Feel what proper alignment actually feels like in your body. Maybe for the first time in years, that's your starting point. That's your first step. Your body carried you this far through every decade, every challenge, every chapter of your life. Now it's time you carried it properly through the rest of the story.